The Dailies is where we're going next, right here on Viewpoint on Atlantic TV. And for review today, we have 4 papers. We have The Punch, The Vanguard, The Nation, and The Guardian. I would like us to start first with The Punch. And let's see what The Punch has as a major one on its front page. On The Punch newspaper this morning, it reads, Ibas defends 6-month tenure as opposition demands probe. And writers to that says PDP Labour Party Masob. Others call for accountability as Fubara returns September 18. Wike and funny enough, Fubara shown transition Thanksgiving service. And you can serve more of yourself on that juicy gist on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Let's quickly see if we take some other leading stories, especially at the top side of the Punch this morning. Kano Singh's transfer from DSS to National Hospital is a major one on page 3. Crude earnings fall by 3.18 trillion naira amid output surge, and you can get more of that story on page 29. And Dangote deploys 1,000 trucks as Ipman rallies marketers, and all of that you can also get on page 7. But what you will also get on page 3 is INEC, Catholic Bishop clash over 2023 polls credibility. And like I said, that story is making a round on page 3 of the Punch. Let's see if we take some other stories, especially at the bottom side of this Punch this morning. A lot seems to be there. And the major one, Ogu urges residents to relocate over flood threat. And remember, we took a critical look at this last week on Dialogue. But we'll just tell you to, rather than talk about it, read it on page 3. Lagos stops 6-story building construction after Punch report. It's a major one on page 5. And on page 8, states pledge quality education as schools resume today. Well, you know, in Delta State, it has already resumed, but other states, schools are resuming today. But I'll tell you to resume more of that story on page 8. But the picture of the day is the River State Administrator, Vice Admiral Ibon Eckert Ibas, retired, and other major PAM secretaries and local government chairmen, all heads of board agencies and others are doing their interdenominational Thanksgiving service in commemoration of transition activities to indeed talk about his 6 years in the helms of affair in Port Harcourt, River State. That picture was taken yesterday. Well, that's the much you can take from the Punch.
Right, let's see what the Nation has for us this morning. The major story here reads, why not revolt Tinubu by Niger State Governor Bako? The writer says president has performed to expectations. Power should remain in South till 2031. Well, you can read more of that story on page 6 of the paper. Let's see what we have just at the top of the main picture. Uzodinma presents book on APC's 10 years in government, September 30th. Well, that's on page 7, and I think I need to grab a copy of that as well. All right, so experts' consistent drop in inflation rates will stimulate investment. That's on page 6. And the top mass, Ansari leaders' conviction victory in battle against illegal mining. That is on page 5 of the paper. No going back on free fuel distribution, says Dangote. That's a lot, but you can read that on page 7. Peter Obi visits Obasanjo Ladoja in Southwest Shuttle. That is on page 7. Still on page 7, build on seed of reconciliation, Ibas tells Fubara and lawmakers. Let's see what we have as the picture of the day. Yes, the picture of the day is we can see political leaders, clerics, and dignitaries at the Bishops' Conference in Ikot Ikpene, Akwa Ibom yesterday. Well, that's all we're taking this morning on The Nation. Let's see what the Guardian has for us. The major story here reads, parents struggle with steep tuition hike as schools wrestle rising OPEX. That's on page 6. Yes, at the top mass, Akpabio urges Nigeria to tariffs, says Tinubu's reforms will bear fruits. Hopefully, that's on page 5 of the paper. Dapman warns against the divisive narratives in downstream sector. That is on page 5 of the paper. INEC others taxed on credible polls to avert protests. That is still on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Let's see what the side mass has. Punish politicians in early elections campaigns, Serap tells INEC. Well, that's on page 7. 11 states may experience heavy rain this week, federal government warns. And we're already having heavy rains though, but that's on page 27 of the paper. Let's go to the bottom mass. Experts divided over Fubara's return as emergency rule expires on Thursday. That's on page 6 of the paper. Shekaro's PDP chairmanship, ADA's prospect on settle ADC coalition. That's on page 29 of the paper. Aregbesola condemns APC's economic policies. Well, you can read that on page 27. Don blames poor nutrition policy execution for 45% child morbidity. Well, that's on page 27 of the paper. Yes, the picture of the day is that of the major headline talking about the hike in tuition fee, coupled with the high cost of living, heavily weighing on parents. Now that we know schools might be resuming or schools are resuming this week. So that's what the picture of the day is really telling us. Well, that's all we're taking this morning on the Guardian newspaper. Up next is the Vanguard.
And the Vanguard indeed is the next paper and the last paper for review. And no surprise, our major headline right there. How attendants manipulate pump and stop petrol consumers nationwide. And I know Messi would say, well, that is so true, especially with the way they seem to sell fuel. How I was scammed, says victim. I second him. I'm a part of it too. Cheating usually intense during scarcity. Well, all said is true, especially last week. Well, last 2 weeks when we had that issue, says the motorist. And NMDPRA lacks adequate personnel absent at filling stations. It's a screamer, or rather kickers, to that major story. And I implore you to get more of that story on page 21 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see if we take some other leading story at the top side of the Vanguard this morning. Yes, foreign policy. Nigeria remains non-aligned, says Tuga, and what he means, we do not have any country that we seem to be aligning with and not having our own personal foreign policy. And just tell you to read that story on page 9. Speak truth to power. Tinubu challenges faith leaders, and you can get more of that on page 5. Federal government predicts flooding in 11 states, advised evacuation. It's the major one on page 8. NDLE arrests India, 3 Nigerians over 3.9 billion tramadol shipment. No wonder. We'll take more of that story on page 6. Diamond-rich Botswana appoints Nigerian Farouk Gumel as chairman of Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now you see Nigerians are trustworthy, but I trust you can get more of that story on our page 19 of the Vanguard. Let's see if we take some other stories just beneath, if there are any. And well, I doubt if there are any. But anyway, you can just really understand that the picture of the day is that of the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party as he visits our former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, at Ota. Well, you do know during the weekend he was going round, especially the Southwest, trying to also see political advice from the gladiators and critical stakeholders in the Southwest. But anyway, that's the much you can take from the Punch, the Vanguard rather, and every other paper on the paper review today. But anyway, we'll try and see if we'll look at some other major headlines that caught our fancy. And one I want us to start with, Messi, this morning is the issue of what parents are expected to face, especially as it concerns that major story on the Vanguard. Knowing some schools are truly resuming today, marks the beginning of many schools resuming on the Mine Delta State have done theirs some 2 weeks back. But, well, it's a pressing problem, and many parents are finding it an Herculean task to now send their children, especially to private schools, with school resumption, the school hike, food, textbooks are on the increase, a whole lot of unnecessary policies being mentored to them by these private school owners. Well, it's not all smiles for parents at this moment.
But do we really blame the school at this point? I think that expensive everywhere. The economy is bad, and you don't expect the school to just keep calm, even when the cost of production, producing textbooks, and all of that are expensive. So I really do not blame the school. It's the country is just like that, and it's not really their fault. The inflation is affecting them, and then but there are some that are really outrageous. I remember one of my friends telling me that she went to register her baby, I think into crèche or daycare or what they call it. And the tuition fee was about 1.7 million. And I was like, okay, 1.7 just to
Are
pet
they
this
are going to
child
be
to
giving?
sleep,
Are they going to
give
be
this
giving
child
the baby
food,
breast milk? Or I don't
give
understand.
this child food and all of that, and you're asking the mother to pay one point something million naira. It's really outrageous. I know some are really outrageous, but the truth is the economy is bad. So there's
Well,
nothing
anyway,
we cannot help it at this point.
well, I don't know if you put the blame on this other major one, and I'm talking about on the Vanguard, where we hear about fuel attendants cutting corners and cheating customers on account of the fuel they pump into their vehicles. A great report right there on Vanguard indicating that many of these filling stations, the attendants seem to, if you are buying 10,000 naira, you might end up in all totality, you might end up being cheated and be given only 9 or 8,000 naira, and 1,000 naira will go to, well, you know, the bank, not the usual bank. But that's how it is. So will the blame not come to them, or are we still going to blame the economy
The truth
on
is,
that account?
this is not a new thing. It's
Okay.
not a new thing. It's been on. I don't know why it's just coming out now. It's been on. Like you get fuel.
So whether the economy was bad or not,
Exactly.
it
So
has
it's not.
always
It
been
has to
existing.
do with greed. I think
Okay.
the persons, the attendants, are just greedy. That is it mainly because this has been on. I even remember back in I think 5 years ago I experienced that. So
Okay.
it's not a new thing. But my own major concern is in Abuja. Have you noticed that Abuja, being the federal capital territory, they still have issues with fuel?
Yeah.
And you find out that these attendants, I don't know if they just try to hoard this fuel just because they want to use it for this
Sharp
black market stuff. And at the front of the filling station, you see people selling black markets. And then the filling station is telling that they don't have fuel. They don't have fuel and they're selling black markets just right at the front of the filling station. So that is what I'm saying. It is greed. It doesn't have anything to do with economy. I think that one is it's their own interest, for their own interest. It's their own pocket. So it doesn't have anything to do with economy.
Well, anyway, still talking about the issue of petrol and fuel, and we just got cheering news that Dangote wants to distribute fuel with about 1,000 trucks free of charge. But the question is, if he does that, will it in every way translate to the amount of fuel is being sold, knowing that those subcharges that normally would have gone into transportation will not be there? But we do know members of Independent Marketers Association seem to be a bit concerned. And let's see how that plays out. But in all honesty, do you see the price of fuel coming down, knowing that they are now going to be giving free of charge, no transport fare added to it?
I don't think that would affect the price
Well, I love
of
Nigeria.
fuel. It won't affect the price. Well, if he decides to give free fuel, who am I to reject it?
No, the transportation will be free for the filling station.
Exactly. So I just think that, but this is not the major issue with Dangote. What he needs to face more is the issue of the clash between the Dangote and the Nopeng. That is what I feel he should concentrate more on. I don't know why, from my own end, I'm saying this as bribery and corruption.
No, well, it's not. It's just trying to see how he can also reduce the pressure being put on major transport dealers, especially as it concerns transporting these products to their filling station. But the honest truth is, if this will definitely will plead, the filling stations are being given fuel free of charge, as in with little or nothing for transportation, should also translate that into the consumers, how much they buy the product. And in every way, it will not be a sin in this country that we're now buying fuel for at least 500 naira or less. Now we can go to buy akara and bread without the woman telling us they add to fuel. We can go and do other major things without, even go to buy foodstuff in the market without the woman saying, you don't know how much we transport. All of that will come to an end. And we just hope the country will smile at the end of the day.
The thing is, I said earlier on that everybody's trying to fight for their own interests, fight for their own pockets. Do you know that at the end of the day, you might not even get to know that they got this free fuel?
Yeah.
Just because they don't want to reduce cost and all of that. They just tell you, well, they said it, now here we take here, we not see them. Wow. So that is Nigerians for you. So it might just end up being one of the news we just see on papers and we don't get to experience them.
Well, I'll be waiting to experience all of that, and we'll see how that will definitely translate into the pockets of Nigerians if that come into swing. And I just hope Dangote sticks to his promise. Well, in every eventuality, that might kickstart this very week, and I will be excited to bring it to you, especially when it translates to this pump price being reduced by the owners of this filling station. Well, I doubt if we still have enough time to talk. We need to go on a break now. But do remember, dialogue will be next. And a major one will come, especially looking at the issue of electoral laws and how it concerns early campaign in Nigeria. Well, it's a major topic, especially on the front page of some of the major dailies, especially looking at that of the Punch and the Vanguard, saying that, well, should INEC not do more to contain all of these persons? But just stick around. All of that will come on Dialogue next.